Hi guys, it's Logan here, and today I wanted to bring you this video of another little side project I have, which is turning this into a media PC for my TV. So this is the case for my old, let's see if you can see that there, my old VPR Matrix. There we go. Bought it from Best Buy back in 2001. This is the original board from it. It's an Intel board. And it's actually a socket 478 Pentium IV. It came with a 2.26 gigahertz processor, which, oh, it's actually in there right now. And I decided to buy a new processor and upgrade it. And so I've done some testing. I think this thing's dead. You can see there it actually has a blown capacitor. It was working with the blown capacitor, but there we go. But for some reason it just sort of stopped working. So what I'm first going to do is actually test it. I'm going to run PC Mark or 3D Mark, that's what it is, on here, and then give you the results. And then I'm going to, just for funsies, overclock the old chip. And then I bought this, which is actually a 3.06 gigahertz Pentium IV with hyperthreading. And yeah, I already put it in there. I was testing it and playing around with it. So I got it overclocked a little bit, but I'll bring you the final numbers here in a minute. Okay, so right now, just for fun, I decided to put in my old graphics card. This is a Radeon 9500 Pro. It has 128 megabytes of graphics RAM, video RAM, and believe it or not, it's actually a DirectX 9 card. I didn't realize it was that late of a model, but the motherboard I'm using now is not obviously the stock. This is a Gigabyte GA81PE1000G with hyperthreading, although this processor doesn't have hyperthreading enabled. So you can see it is just stuttering. Now this is 3D Mark 06. I tried to install 11, but I don't think that works with Windows XP, or at least it's not working with this one. So it is getting, if you can see that, 0 frames per second. So some fraction of that, maybe half a frame per second or something like that. So I'll show you the results when it's done. Okay, and here you can see my whole reason for wanting to upgrade. Absolutely pathetic. 419 3D Marks. This is with 3D Mark 06. Now granted, this processor is old. I mean, even at the time it was 5 years old. Now you can see CPU Z there. It's actually showing at 2277. And so the RAM here is running at 266. 2 gigabytes of DDR, dual channel, 266. So here's what I'm going to do is this board is capable of overclocking. So I'm going to try and overclock this before I move up to the better graphics card and the better processor, and we'll see what kind of results we get. Although one more thing to note that I was surprised at is this is actually running at 1080p on this old card. So that score was at 1080p. So as pathetic as it is for a almost 15-year-old graphics card and CPU to run at 1080p, yeah, that's something. Okay, so this little chip is actually a really good overclocker. We got it up to 2575. Now, of course, this is a locked chip, which means 2575 megahertz, which means that all we could overclock was the front side bus. So the core multiplier is completely locked. But that's about a 13, almost 14% overclock just from increasing the multiplier, and it's completely stable. Ran 3D Mark there, 06, and we got a score of 430, which is terrible, but really it's because of the graphics card. So I'm going to swap over the graphics cards, and I'm swapping it over for this, which is a GeForce 7600, I believe, GT, and it's got 512 megabytes of memory instead of 128, and it's significantly newer. This is maybe from 05, 06, something like that. So I'm going to swap it out and give it another test. We'll see how it goes. See, it's a big difference. We're actually getting 4 or 5, they're 11 frames per second versus half a frame per second. So much better. I'll bring you the results here in just a minute. So the graphics card makes a huge difference. Same clock speed, 2575 megahertz on the processor, but now 1529. So we just overclocking the CPU got about a 3% increase, but the graphics card added about a 300, actually a close to 400% increase. 300, I don't know exactly, 350% or so. And this particular graphics card is a really good overclocker. Overclocking it in MSI Afterburner, and we're at 520 megahertz, which is significantly over the standard speed, and 300 megahertz on the memory. So quite a bit different. And the memory on the RAM is, let's see, 303 megahertz. So up quite a bit from the 266 we started with. So I'm going to swap out the processors for my new one, and I'll get back after that. Here I just thought I'd show you what the new CPU looks like. There we go. So it's a 3.06 gigahertz Pentium IV socket 478, and it has hyper-threading enabled. So I just cleaned it off using isopropyl alcohol. Just cleaned off the cooler there. So I'm going to install it and fire her up. Now we got the processor in there and we ran the test again. The graphics score really didn't change. So we got 1530 3D marks, basically the same. So increasing the processor speed really did virtually nothing to change the graphics outcome. However, the pass mark score, I know I didn't show the earlier one, but for the other processor, it was at about 191 with the old one. Now we have a hyper-threaded core, and it's faster. So it's up to 307.8, almost 308. So I'm going to go ahead and overclock this, and we'll see what the scores are then. Here are the final numbers. So I managed to overclock the CPU to 3485 megahertz, so 3.5 gigahertz almost. Memory, the RAM didn't really get overclocked much at all. The 3D Mark score is 1564. I did overclock the AGP slot to from 66 up to, I believe, 80, but it didn't really make it a difference. I think it gave me 2 more 3D marks, so nothing really special there. And then with the CPU test, ended up going up to 359, so a little bit better there. So I'm going to end up playing a YouTube video here. See a YouTube video running at 720p, and it's running just fine. The phone won't really, there we go, it'll focus there. So yeah, it runs just fine at 720p, and from the distance that my couch is from the TV, it's really just fine. It won't run 1080p, it'll drop frames. I'll show you that here in just a second, but at 720p it's fine. And here we can see it at 1080p. It is just running kind of slow, skipping frames and so forth. But otherwise, it's going to be a pretty nice little PC. I actually find it kind of interesting that it'll run games at 1080p and do just fine, but it won't run a YouTube video. I mean, what kind of technology do we have with Flash there? But anyway, that's it. Does it work? Yeah, it does. If you have an old PC, especially if it's newer than a Pentium IV, or if it's an LGA 775 Pentium IV, go ahead and turn it into a Media Center PC. I also have these little controllers here. If you can see, these little USB controllers from Logitech. There we go. And they're great for playing ROMs. You know, I play Super Nintendo, I play PlayStation, I'll play Sega ROMs. So yeah, not too bad. Thanks for checking it out. Subscribe if you want to see more. I got another video coming up on the differences clock for clock between Pentium IV and some later processors. But check it out. Otherwise, until then, have a great day.